doing well? This episode of the Lucas Miles Show is brought to you by Cove. Visit covesmart.com and use promo code LUCAS, that's L-U-C-A-S, for all of your home security needs. Hey, how we doing?
Hi, everyone.
You guys doing well?
Thanks for coming.
So,
appreciate it.
Yeah, we just had a little dinner, so we got to visit for a little bit, and I'll take care of a little housekeeping here first. So, you are part of a live studio audience, obviously here at Biola University, but also on the Lucas Miles Show, which is on faithwire.com. You can find it on Apple iTunes, Stitcher Radio, anywhere podcasts are. And I need your help sharing this once this episode goes live. So it's going to come out in a few weeks. We'll cut everything together. There'll be an audio and a video version of it. So you can say, hey, I was there. And that is certainly appreciated. And I just want to say a big thank you to Biola University. And you guys are incredible. I was here a couple of years ago and got to do another event and had just loved it, and was working with Taylor and said we got to do another one of these. And of course we thought of Candace, and I'm so happy just to bring you here to the school and just have you part of this really special and amazing university.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for being here. And a big shout out to the School of Cinema and Media Arts. And if you're watching, maybe, because here's the deal. You guys in the room, you know how amazing Biola is, right? Let's make sure that people watching this know that. And I think we have overflow rooms right now going on.
Yeah.
So if you're in the overflow room, give us a cheer. Maybe we can hear you. Okay, I can hear them back there. That's awesome. But people maybe that are watching or listening, this might be maybe the first time they've heard of Biola, and I just want to say that this place is the real deal. The talent and we were talking earlier about character that's coming out of a school like this, and specifically Biola, it's just been really, really incredible. And so I've just been so impressed, touring the campus, seeing the programs. So, to our listeners and viewers down the road, because you guys already know here in the room, make sure and check out what's going on here at Biola. We have a sign over here that's got Variety, Movie Maker, Filmmaker, Backstage, all endorsing the cinema program here at Biola, which is just incredible. So thank you. So that's out of the way. Let's get into what we came here to maybe dive into. And Candace, I'm just, everybody in this audience here and maybe listening, they're all coming from obviously slightly different places in life. But I think that there's something that brings them together. And that is, first of all, their faith. And second of all, their love for this industry. Mm-hmm. And I can hardly think of anybody better to talk about those two things together than you. So I'm going to just pitch to you for a second and maybe, talk to us. Was this industry, did you see yourself, I know you started pretty young, but was this just this is what I'm doing right from the beginning?
No, not entirely. So I started acting at 5 years old, and because I grew up here in Southern California, and I just went on commercial auditions instead of playing soccer. And then at 10 years old, I booked a television show. And I loved it. I loved acting. I loved having fun doing it. My personality suited it, because when you're a child actor, you need to listen and follow directions and do what you're being told to do and do it well. And I was that kid. I was like the obedient kid. I was good at listening and following directions. So anyway, but it was probably around 15 years old where I thought, I really like this.
Yeah.
This is really cool, because I took tap and ballet when I was really little, but I really have been acting my entire life. But it wasn't because I was tugging on my mom's sleeve saying, this is what I want to do. I want to be movies or TV. I didn't. It was just, we kind of fell into it. But 15, I'm like, yeah, I really like it. I think I'd like to stay in this. And when you're on a hit, successful television show like Full House was, that obviously had a huge impact on me and in wanting to stay on the show, because I was also surrounded by wonderful people.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because there's a lot of people that start young in this business, and I've had some really personal kind of one-on-one conversations with various people in the industry that started at a young age, and I've heard crazy stories and everything else. You seem to have navigated this, and I think probably with your family, very well. What sort of maybe things did you guys put in place early on to see that you could sustain this career, the way that you have?
Well, the truth is, my dad was not a huge fan of the industry and always told us, like, this is fairyland. It's a dream. It's not a real career, so you better make sure that you go to school and have a real career and job that you can rely on. And that was always in the back of my mind. And my dad's a school teacher, by the way, like for 40 years. But the thing was, I actually did not grow up in a Christian home, which a lot of people are surprised about, or maybe you know that, but being in a moral home was very important. So my parents had very distinct and strict rules about life and our values and our morals, which were all biblical values. But at the time, my dad would not have called them that.
Right.
My dad's a Christian now, but at the time growing up, he wasn't. My mom is a Christian. Our whole family's a Christian now.
Everybody's a Christian. Let's just make that
now.
clear. So
it all just happened at different times in our lives. So anyway, when we were in the industry, it was really, and I went on commercial auditions instead of playing soccer because that's how it was treated growing up. My parents were like, this is fun. If you like doing it, that's great. But as soon as you get home, you need to take out the trash. Your bed needs to be made. You need to do your homework.
You had a real life.
Yes. It wasn't my life. The industry growing up was not my life. And then when my brother and I, Kirk, were on successful television shows at the same time, my parents always made sure that my sisters were included. I have 2 sisters. I'm the baby. My brother's the oldest, 2 sisters in between. So everything was a family affair, and it was always about our family, and it was never just about my brother or just about me, and it wasn't about making money. It was literally our extracurricular activity.
Was there a moment when you were like, oh, like this is big? Like, when did it hit you that I'm on a hit?
Well, I realized what a hit my brother was first when they were making pillowcases with his face on it. Some of you in this room may not know my brother very well, but some of the moms in here might know my brother well.
We won't ask if somebody had a pillow. We're gonna let you keep that private.
But I knew into our second or third season, because I had seen the success of my brother on Growing Pains and had seen his specific success, I knew by the third season of Full House that our show was a big hit with fans, not the critics, but fans. And my parents had already had some preparation because of my brother before I entered that realm as well. So they were navigating my brother first and foremost, because he was ahead of me, even though we started acting at the same time, but ahead of me in terms of the start of his series. And because he was so extremely popular. And so they had to figure it out with him first. So I was buffered even more, and my parents had figured out how to navigate some of the waters once Full House became a big hit.
I'm a middle child, and so I got to see all the, my brother go through everything. I think my parents learned a lot through that, and then I think that there's a lot of truth in that and how, people experience, just kind of navigating the place within their family. But let's talk a little bit about this show, Fuller House. We have to bring this up, here at the start. Any Fuller House fans out there? We got a few. And
Thanks.
I'm a filmmaker. I'm a pastor. I host a show. And I always think, like, what's going on behind the scenes? How long was this a dream to bring kind of Fuller House and to kind of bring everybody back together for this?
So we've done the show for 5 seasons now. And before the start of the first season, we had been talking about this idea for 5 years.
Wow.
And the creator and executive producer Jeff Franklin and John Stamos had been talking about it, and then talked to me and Andrea Barber and Jodie Sweetin, saying, would you be game? And so we started pitching the show within a couple years after the initial talks, and every network said no to us, and the last one that said yes was Netflix.
Wow.
And here we are.
Here we are. So this is the final season.
Yes.
And there's still, was it half of it left to air? Is that how it is?
Exactly. It premiered, the first half premiered in December, and the second half will be out later this year. I don't have an exact date, but probably summertime.
Did you, is that at first episode airs on, or even, I guess the first season drops on Netflix, were you anticipating kind of the craze and the mania that there is around that show when it first came back out?
Honestly, without sounding egotistical, yes.
I like it.
Yes, because it's the only reason we knew the show was going to be a hit as long as the show was done well. And we had the original creator and executive producer of the show, so we knew it would be in trusted hands. But Full House has not been off the air in 35 years. It has been on continuously in over 100 countries.
That's longer than most of these guys have been alive.
I know. Oh, that makes me really old. But we understand our fan base. We all have known the fan base and how much that show has meant to people over the years. So we knew if we came back with the show, the fans were waiting for it. So when we first aired, we were expecting it to be a hit. We were expecting fans to embrace it and love it. And for the most part, people have.
So let me ask this, because you produce as well. Maybe not everybody knows that, but you're also, actively producing content too. And, I know for me, there's sometimes you go, okay, I think this thing could work, and other times you're going, I hope it works, and you feel like you're rolling the dice. How do you approach a project when you see, conceptualize something new, or you get a script, your way? How often, what's the process that you have maybe in going, I'm going to do this or not do this? How much are you anticipating where this could go or what the story's like and those things?
Sure. Well, at this point in my career, it's very different from when I started out. So at this point, I know who I am. I know who I am within the industry, and I know my brand. So my first question is, does this project fit my brand? If it fits my brand, then I'll say to myself, do I like this project? Does it inspire me? Does it spark something creatively in me? And if it does, then I have to ask, does it make sense to my audience? Because something might be great for me and it fits the brand, but if it's maybe too out of the box, or maybe I'm in family television. It's what I've set out for my career to do and what my production company does, and all that I do, it's all based around family. So maybe if I wanted to do something that fit the box, but what if it was like super artsy and kind of like, I don't know that would fit my audience.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I look at, is if it fits the audience. And then it goes down to what the content, and if it keeps passing these certain tests, then it's like, is this something I want to invest my time in? Is this something that the time is worth the money? Does the money matter? Because there's some projects that the money doesn't matter. I want to do this, or I want to just give my time to this. Or sometimes things are like, it fits the box. It's okay. Might not be my favorite thing, but it's financially great for my family. Yeah. So there's all kinds of decisions. But it's always about, first and foremost, does it fit the brand and who I am and what it represents and what I want my name on to go out into the world?
So let's talk about this personal brand thing here, because, we live in the, when you and I were growing up, very few people thought about their personal brand. We were just going through life for a while, right? But today, Instagram, everything is like, what's your brand? And this influencer mindset, everything else is so ingrained, I think, in the world today, in this generation. What would you say to maybe some students out here, or somebody that's listening, as they're trying to discover what their own brand is in their life, whether they're in the industry or doing, something outside of it? Is there any resources that you could recommend, or maybe process that you went through to go, this is how I discovered who I was?
Sure, this is going to sound super cheesy and sales pitchy, but Kind is the New Classy, one of the books I wrote, has a lot of that information in it. But the truth is, you have to know who you are. You have to know whose you are. You have to know that before you walk out into the world, because the world is going to try to tell you what it thinks you should be. And so I ask myself questions. You should ask yourself these questions for whatever job you want to do, whatever career you want to pursue. What's your why? Why do you want to do it? And there's a list of questions that can come off of the why. Is it just to make money? Is it to exceed in a specific career? If you're an actor, is it to why I want to win an Emmy? Do I want to make a lot of money? Do I just want to be famous?
Right.
What's your why? And there's no wrong answer. It's just be honest with yourself. But then you have to ask yourself, what's your purpose? What's the purpose? And it kind of sounds similar to the why, but let me go a little bit deeper, because when I think of my purpose, I'm thinking about my life purpose. My life purpose as a Christian is to glorify God in all I do.
Isn't it refreshing to hear somebody say that in her position? Isn't that awesome? Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So if that is my sole purpose in life, whatever I do as a career or in my personal life, those are all secondary priorities. They're important things in my life, but it's not the purpose of my life. I wasn't put on the earth to be the best actress I could be. My purpose is to glorify God, but God gave me a talent, and I get to use those talents in acting, in producing, in writing to produce content that can turn back and glorify God. And I think it's so important that you know what your purpose is and what your why is. Then you can create boundaries. You can draw certain lines in the sand. You can predetermine some decisions you'll make that you know you might face later on, because the going will get tough and you will have to face decisions that will be hard to make, and you will have outside influences trying to tell you what you should do. And that's when you have to be able to come back to the basics and say, what's my purpose? What's my why? What is the priority here? What do I already know that I've said, I'm not going to do this, I am going to do this, or these are the boundaries that I've created myself. And you can always come back to them when you're faced with tough things.
You know, I call it your tent stakes, okay, or your tent pegs. And there was a time when my wife and I went camping very early in our marriage, and we drove out to this place, you know, about an hour from our house or whatever. And we get all the way out there, we unpack the tent. I had loaned it to somebody, and they had forgot to put the stakes into the tent. And so, like, we had our whole, like, weekend plan, and so I'm just like, we're going to make the best of this. And so, like, I'm rigging rope, like, through the tent, tying it to the bumper of the truck, and, like, all this sort of stuff, trying to, like, make this tent stand up. And, of course, it rains crazy. A raccoon gets in our, you know, in our cooler and everything. I mean, it was tragic.
It's like real-life
Survivor.
Survivor.
Yeah, this is marriage year one. And now I will have at least
now
say,
it's naked and afraid.
yeah, exactly. That's funny. We've been married now 19 years, so yes, we've made it. So, as I was saying...
Sorry, did I make you
You
blush?
did a little bit, but I like it. So, you know, this idea, like something like a tent, it takes those stakes in there to get it to stay put. And because when the storms come, when the wind comes, everything else, it starts going crazy. And so, you know, for me, my faith has become that tent stake that, you know I know that this is the thing. Because as you get out there, and you've seen this, I'm sure, a million times with people, you get into a place in the industry or you get in a situation where nobody just wakes up and goes, I'm going to throw my faith away and give up on all this, but we slowly, make these compromises that lead to that.
It's a slow fade.
Yes. Can you speak to that at all?
Casting crowns. Okay. I'm full
Do you
of
want to sing?
one-liners tonight. No, it's the one thing I can't do. So do I want to speak to
maybe, how have you maybe avoided some of those compromises over the years that lead to kind of that drift from truth?
Sure. Well, it's so important to have accountability. I think that's the number one thing we all need. And I have an incredible team that I work with and have worked with for years, but it started with two people, my business managers, and they were always my accountability in that they knew what my goals were, but they knew my boundaries and they knew my values, and they have respected them from day one. And so there are those people out there, by the way, to represent you in whatever field you're going into. There are those agents, whether you're a writer or an actor or a producer. There are people that will listen to you and respect you. You just have to find them and do due diligence, do your research. But the accountability for them, they could already weed things out for me and not even put it in front of me from the beginning to know that, like, this just doesn't even pass the Candace test of what she would want to do. But when there were also times when I'm like, I so want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, they would ask me the tough questions and say, okay, but have you talked to your husband? Have you prayed about it? I'm reminding you how much time this is going to take away from your family. Are you okay with that? Those people in your life are so important. And that doesn't have to be representation. That could be your mom or your brother, your sister, your best friend. But it's the people that you know are solidly walking in faith or having your best interest at heart that will tell you the truth in love and the hard truth. And you still have to make the best decisions for yourself, but accountability is, like, I think the number one thing to not, because we're all going to veer off. We all are. It's so easy to take your eyes so slightly off of Jesus. Right. In my Bible study, one of the ladies had used this analogy to me, and I'll never forget it, because growing up here on the beach, I was on the beach every day. And when you go out into the ocean and then the current starts taking you, you see that lifeguard tower, but you're out there playing and you're swimming, and like soon enough, you're just like, you're 2 lifeguard towers down, and then your parents are like, where are they? Where are? That's how easy it is. You don't realize how much you're drifting, and you can drift really fast or you can drift really slow. But that's always, it's like, no, you got to keep your eye on that lifeguard tower when you're out in the ocean. And that's the same thing with Jesus.
And I think that's so relevant today because we're seeing that in culture, and I'll keep this somewhat general so people can fill in the gaps. But we're seeing doctrinal drift on a pretty large scale, I think, across the country, and it's more and more we're hearing the gospel is just about how you treat somebody rather, and kind of removing that Jesus Christ component out of it, and that obviously is the bedrock of the faith that we have. I want to come back to a little bit of kind of getting inside your head here, because you're working really, really hard, okay? And if anybody follow Candace's Instagram, we got a few fans out there. You're writing, you have, you've done talk shows, you've done obviously all the Full House and Fuller House, you're doing films, you have all, voiceover, parts, everything else that's going into that. How do you maintain that pace? And, because anytime you say yes to one thing, it means you're saying no to something else. And sometimes that's family time with your spouse, whatever. Sure. How do you make some of those decisions as you approach, this business? Yeah,
it can be challenging. No has become one of my most favorite words. I used to say yes all the time, and I think saying yes is wonderful. But you have to learn that no is so powerful, and it protects you. And it just helps you not be robbed of the things that may be most important. I have said so many more no's in my career than I have said yeses. One is pretty much that saying no helped me stay on track as to the types of things I wanted to be a part of, the projects I wanted to work on. And with saying no comes a lot of patience. You have to have it. I think that's how part of navigating my career. Sometimes it hurts to say no, and you have to wait it out, but it's been such a wonderful word. And now that my career has really flourished in the last 10 years, I love saying no because there's just too much stuff. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, but there's just too much stuff. And then you have to weigh, like, am I getting to spend time with my family, or is this really important enough? So I forgot the original question. I don't know. I just loved saying no.
I think that was good. We had some, yeah. That's funny. So let's talk about daily schedule. Okay. What does that look like for you? Because here's the truth. Here's the truth. I was in a hotel room. I live in Indiana. I'm out here about once a month or so, and I was in a hotel room today in somewhere nearby, maybe 10 minutes from here. And I was working on the hotel like the whole day, just on my computer, and I was like literally just in bed. I had Friends on like really low because it was just on nonstop on this channel, and that's all that was on television. And I'm just cranking out emails and everything. And then I open up Instagram for a minute, and I'm flipping through, and I see stories. And then I see you're like working out with a trainer, and I'm like, I got to go down to the gym. And I literally went to the gym this morning after I saw that. I was like, I got to do something with my life. I'm like laying here. So talk to me a little bit about, do you have kind of a routine that you've developed that maybe helps, keep your energy levels up and these sort of things to be able to do everything that you're doing?
Sure. The question is no, in the sense that...
You like saying no.
You're right. You know me so well now. I don't have much of a routine in the sense of a traditional one because I travel so much. My schedule changes day to day. Yeah. So I have to make time for the things that are important to me. So for instance, I sat down at the end of December and I know every date of my calendar year this year. Of course, more things can come up, but I'm filming 7 Hallmark movies this year. Thanks. I had a book come out in January already. I am continually producing more of my Candace collection, which includes home and decor and devotionals and Christian themed product, and writing more books. And then have some partnerships with companies that I work with QVC on. And so I have pretty much every day accounted for in this calendar year. And I'm home about 6 months out of this year. Okay. And so because of that, my schedule is like, I don't have a routine because I'm on an airplane.
So it's more about the big blocks of like, I have to get time in the Word or I have to work out, but it's not necessarily always in the same order in terms of how that happens.
It never is because, I just flew in because I was in Vancouver for 3 weeks shooting a movie. And then I fly to Philly for a day to go do QVC. And then I have a couple days home with my family, but then I have to go into my office and sit down and do all my office work. And so when I'm doing like my Bible time, I try to do my Bible time first thing in the morning. That doesn't always happen when I'm doing a movie because I have a 5 a.m. call. I don't want to get up at 3:30. I'm going to do it later in the day or in the evening. As far as working out, it's like seasonal in the sense that it's really important to me, so I try to find time to do it because I love it. But if I'm having a 17-hour day, my workout's just not going to happen. I can't do that. But sleep is super important to me.
Yes, I struggle on that one.
I like to get a minimum of 8 hours. I'll take 9 or 10. I like my sleep.
I need to borrow a couple from you.
And I try to eat well, and I try to exercise, and those are great things that help me keep my energy up. But I think the other thing is that I genuinely love what I do. And when you love something and you're passionate about something, it's not that it makes it easy, and it doesn't mean that it's not a grind on during certain months, but I just can stop and go, wow, I get to do this. I get to do what I love. I love this. And just knowing that can put my stressed heart to ease for that moment and just rest and go, wow, I'm pretty lucky. I get to do what I love to do.
I feel like in some ways like that you can literally see that and feel that on screen in the work that you do.
Oh, well, thank you.
You know, it just and you know, I think it just comes out of the characters that you choose and what that is. And so, what is it like, you know, walking in every day and going, man, wow. Like, I mean, how often do you have those moments of like, is this real life?
I have them a lot. And now I'm going to sound like the old lady in here, but it's like, honestly, the older you get, you can either become jaded or you just appreciate where you are and what you have. And every year that goes by, I just feel so grateful, and I just want to stop and take in the moments. And I'm just, it's like with age comes wisdom, but my kids are all grown. I'm an empty nester officially. My kids are 21, 20, and 18 years old. So it's a new season of life for me, and I'm like, wow, this has been awesome. And so I just appreciate it, and the appreciation makes me slow down, even though I still have a ton going on, but I'm stopping to smell the roses more often.
You know, that idea of gratitude to me is something that I think is really maybe valued in the Christian life. A lot of times as I see people or work with people, you know, there's a verse in Scripture that says that God inhabits the praises of his people. And, you know, I used to remember singing that in a song when I was a kid, some hymn or something. And, you know, literally what it's saying is that as I start praising him, as I start thanking him, as I start saying, like, God, I can't believe I get to do this. You know, I get to sit on stage and interview you. Like, that's a really cool moment. That in that moment, as we thank him and praise him, like, he meets us. You know, and I think that for times, and, you know, I'm sure there's times in people's lives and as you go through your career where you're going, God, where are you? I think that's something really important that you're stating, you know, in how you've operated, that remembering him in those moments to give him thanks, like he meets you there.
100%. And I don't want to fool anyone into thinking that my life is just roses and like, wow, she's so lucky and never had a hardship in her life. Like, please. I have 3 children. I mean, that alone, you know, you raise 3 kids, but and my marriage and times at work, I mean, it's all a roller coaster. There's hills and valleys, and I've experienced all that. So I know I'm up here saying, like, I'm so grateful and it sounds so hopeful, but I don't want anyone walking away going, wow, she just like seems like it's all great and never been through anything. And trust me, I've been through it all. I'm sharing the highlight reel with you, just like Instagram. Like, you're not getting all the real stuff. I mean, I can share that with you. I'm happy to, but
You know, I had a friend that interviewed one of the astronauts. I think it was Buzz Aldrin, and he was saying, you know, it's just so amazing that, you know, you guys started here on Earth, and you fire up the rocket, and you just go straight to the moon, and you can program that. And Buzz Aldrin goes, no, that's not how it worked. We literally went like this to the moon, like having to fire these rocket boosters back and forth. And I mean, that's how life is. It's constantly up and down.
Exactly.
You go through those things. Now, to be fair, your Instagram is fairly like, this is my life. Like, I feel like you have a high value for transparency. Would you say that?
yes, I hope so. What you see is what you get. It's just me, and I'm doing my thing, being me, and I love sharing things. And of course, I don't share all of it, but
Sure.
I try to be as authentic as I can without crossing a line that would offend my family or some of the people I work with if I'm having a bad day or I'm mad at someone.
I think you navigate that well, and I mean, you know, to be able to see you, you know, I followed some of the stuff that you were talking about, some of the work you've done with compassion. So you went over to Africa, correct?
Ecuador.
Ecuador. Okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Yeah, and so Can you talk about that experience at all?
Sure, that was great. That was actually my second compassion trip. We've been sponsoring kids for 15 years, and we started sponsoring 2 girls because we've had 2 that have graduated through the program. So we started sponsoring Ketsi and Mia as well, and we got to meet them. So we went on a sponsor trip, And it was so cool. First time I'd ever met any of my sponsored kids. And then it was it's very special, and it doesn't lessen any of my relationships with the other children that we sponsor that we've only written to our correspondence, but it was super cool. And now I'm just realized the differences that young girls face in poverty, and not that young boys don't face hardships, but there are specific things that young girls face in poverty, like education discrimination, or having their periods and not having hygiene and not being able to go to school because of it, and sex trafficking and all kinds of things. So I'm using my social media platform to shed that light on girls in poverty with compassion, and we're specifically doing a whole thing through the season of Lent to just use the 40 days to just point people to Jesus and help all those girls that are in poverty.
That's super cool. So we're going to take some audience questions here in just a minute, but I want to ask one more that, I feel like sometimes I see or I hear people that are maybe believers in Hollywood that are talking about, like, it's Hollywood, you can't talk about your faith, you can't say anything like that. But I feel like there's a lot of examples of people such as yourself or Chris Pratt or Denzel, or now we see Bieber and Kanye talking about faith a little bit. What would be your encouragement to somebody
on
who's
Sunday?
Yes, yeah. We're gonna have a Sunday service right after this.
Okay.
We'll have to talk about that album afterwards.
I just embarrassed my daughter, I'm sure.
So, I mean, what sort of what sort of advice would you give to maybe we have a lot of believers in this room and listening to this that are maybe not sure if they can talk about their faith and not. How would you encourage them to approach that?
You absolutely can be a believer in the entertainment industry, and you can live a faithful life and have a huge impact on the entertainment industry. Like, I'm personally so glad that you guys are here and wanting to be in it, because we need more people in the entertainment industry. I know people think it can be so dark, and yet I have come across so many more believers than I ever thought I would within the entertainment industry. They're not as many are as outspoken as maybe I am, but they're there, and we need you, and you can. And I honestly don't see the entertainment industry being any different than any other line of work.
That's a great point.
As a Christian, you should do your job with excellence. You should carry yourself with Christian character always. You should honor whatever you're doing with everyone you're working with, to be kind, have all those attributes, all the fruit of the Spirit, like all the attributes that Jesus would have. I mean, that's the goal, right? We all know we have a bad day once in a while, like we get that. But no matter what industry you're in, you can do that. You don't have to shy away because it's not a Christian industry. If you're a doctor or a hedge fund manager or you're a barista, you're not necessarily working at within a Christian company, but you're doing your job with excellence. You're walking around carrying that badge and that honor of Christ on you, and people know you by the way you talk and the way you carry yourself. And so that's the same in the entertainment industry. I was saying earlier, I haven't actually done quote unquote Christian content in about 9 years. I do family-friendly entertainment. I'm in the secular world of entertainment. But again, I know who I am. I'm a Christian. But I hope that within all the people that I meet and I work with, and the projects that I choose and the projects that my companies represent, that people will know by the fruit of them, that even if I'm not preaching the gospel message within all those projects, that they know by the way they were done, that were excellent and with courtesy and kindness and good business management, that there's Christian character behind that.
That's good. That's good. I mean, to me, it really, what you're saying, it comes down to influence and utilizing the influence that you have. And, whether you're, a grip or a gaffer or the star or the business guy or you work at the barbershop that the people are coming to or whatever it is, we all have a sphere of influence that we get to utilize and, for the kingdom. And I think that you're doing a really great job of utilizing your sphere of influence for the kingdom.
Thank
so,
you.
No, we want to thank her for everything.
Thanks.
Now, I want to take some questions from the crowd. And do we have a third mic? No. We don't have a third mic? Okay. All right. So I'll probably repeat the question just so people listening, can hear that later. So all right. So I'm going to try to do my best to see people out here. I saw you first. All right. So the question was regarding The View and kind of
I'm
managing.
laughing. There weren't a lot of different perspectives. There were two. It was 4 against 1, okay? Sorry to cut you off.
You're fine. You're fine.
Sorry. No, you know what? I'm really happy that I had the opportunity to do The View. It grew me in so many ways. It was never a job that I wanted, and it kind of fell in my lap. And it was actually one of those times where I prayed so hard. My husband and I were praying about that because I was like, where did this come from? And we're like, this doesn't even make sense for me to do this. It's in New York. I live in LA. I've got kids. I'm not moving to New York. I mean, just from the basic things, it didn't make sense. And we kept praying about it, and it wouldn't go away. It kept coming back. And I kept saying, no, I can't do it because of this. And they'd say, well, we'll give you this. No, but I can't do it because of this. Well, we'll give you this. And so I felt at that time, and my husband did too, that it was something that a door that God was opening for me that he wanted me to walk through, because the truth was I did not want to go through that door. It scared the you-know-what out of me. And so that's also what happens. Like, fear is one of those things that you hate it, but you love it, because sometimes it's the scariest things that God nudges us to do to push forward and get us to where we need to go. And it might be for good or for bad, because sometimes we go through rough things just to build our character. So anyway, being on The View was wonderful. It was a wonderful learning place. It was a very difficult day-to-day show. It was a difficult commute because I was commuting every week from New York to LA. And it was very challenging to sit at a table with virtually 3 to 4 people that had the opposing viewpoint, and not always respectful. I always love different viewpoints. I don't want to sit in a room only with people that have the same viewpoint as me. That doesn't grow me in wisdom. It doesn't make me think about things from a different perspective. And so I want to sit with different people, but I always hope and want it to be respectful and kind and classy, and which was the reason why I wrote the book, Kind is the New Classy, because of my time on The View.
That's good. That's good. All right, so we got another one here. So the question's about, how did you come to Christ, maybe if your parents weren't believers?
Well, my mom was a believer, and it was because when I was 12 years old, my parents decided to separate and considered divorcing, and a friend of theirs invited them to church and to go to a counselor there in hopes to work the marriage out. And that's when my parents started going to church and then bringing us as kids to church. And my mom was so grateful because my mom was a believer.
That's cool.
And then eventually, like I said, in time, we were all believers.
All right, how about this section over here? We got anybody? We got one back there. Yep. Yeah. So the question is about, how do you protect your brand, and maybe would you do something where you would navigate maybe outside of that if you still felt like it felt within your general, kind of, makeup of who you are here to be?
Sure. I would absolutely consider playing the villain or the antagonist if it was a story of redemption. If it was a great story, of course, I would love to play the villain at some point. I don't know if anyone would believe it. I think I'm too happy.
Just say no a lot during the movie, and maybe they'll think so. Yes.
But I absolutely would. I don't, that's not my goal, to just play the Christian character. Again, it's why a lot of times I think about specifically being doing family-friendly content as opposed to just being in the Christian market, because I don't want everything to only be that.
Yeah.
I hate to say that.
Yeah.
That sounds, but anyway, I would absolutely consider it as long as it fits within the brand.
And if you have scripts, her manager's here. So, yeah. All right. How about this section over here? Yes. Favorite Full House memory. Can we include Fuller House in there too, in case it's a crossover? Okay. Fuller House memory or experience. Favorite moment.
It's a hard question to answer, even though it's a simple one, because it's 30 plus years of my life. There are so many memories. That show, both of them, bring me so much joy. I can't even tell you. And getting to do Fuller House was just the biggest gift of my life because I got to work with my best friends. I also grew as I became a director on Fuller House as well. And so there are so many things, from friendships to the growth in my career, that are so wonderful. But honestly, I mean, the best thing are the friendships. They are 30 plus years and I love them, and my memories are just laughing. We just laugh so much.
Got a couple. There's a couple back there. How about you in the front row?
That's a great question, though.
Okay, so yeah, I'll repeat that. Yeah, so the question is, you and your brother have maybe, you've kind of maybe been drawn to different aspects of the industry. You doing more mainstream stuff, him doing, gravitating towards more faith-based, projects in the past. Has that ever created tension, in terms of how you make that decision in there?
And the boundaries that we chose.
Yes.
I know she's specifically talking about kissing on screen. Yeah, I know. You know what the great thing is? My brother and I are very close. I am with all my siblings. So it's never a discussion that we've actually had. We support each other, and I love that God called him to be in the community of the Christians, to be teaching and sharing and making documentaries for the Christian audience, to speak have a tour of conferences, which he's on right now, the living room tour, to speak into the marriages of Christians. And that's where God called him, and it's awesome, and it's amazing. God did not call me to that. God called me to the secular industry, and I produce the content in which I feel still honors God and reaches a different group of people. That's all it is. So it's never caused tension. It only causes support for one another because we're reaching to different audiences for the same goal.
Awesome. All right, and I'm gonna pass her name over to Billy Hollowell for a new journalist position. So, all right, and we got one in the way back there. Yeah. We were actually talking about that on the way over here, and it's like, because I get asked that all the time, like as a pastor, and to me, it's like, and one of the things that we were saying is just like every day's different. I mean, tomorrow it might be something in Corinthians. Today it might be Jesus wept. I mean, I think that.
It's true, though. It's why the word is living and active.
Yeah.
Because you can read the same words over and over again in the Bible, and they just can speak to you differently at that moment. The context doesn't change, the meaning doesn't change, but whatever season you are in your life or in that specific day, God can speak to us through all those different verses. But I will just tell you what my life verse is, which is, it's Esther 4:14, which is so familiar to so many people, but I had read that verse a bunch of times. And before I went back into the industry about 12 years ago, because I took about a 10-year break to stay home and raise my children. When I read that verse again before coming when I came back into the industry, it like popped off the page like it never had in my life before. And it's, for if you remain silent, relief and deliverance will arise from another place, but you and your father's house shall perish. For who knows that you have been called to royal position for such a time as this? And I put my name in that, and I thought, Candace, if you go back into the industry and you remain silent, God, will make everything happen that I want to happen, but you and your house, your name, the way I could use you, the legacy that you could leave for generations isn't going to happen. For who knows that I have not called you to Hollywood for such a time as this? And I think about that verse all the time in that context. And sometimes when my heart starts pounding and I literally am feeling God or the Holy Spirit say like, you need to speak up, and I don't want to speak up. I think of that verse, for if you remain silent, have I not called you to Hollywood for such a time as this?
That's good. That's good. All right, we got time for a couple more here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question. You talked about your husband. I'm just curious how you guys met and how you coordinated his fame and stardom with yours. I think that was a fascinating story.
I think he's talking about your husband and not mine, because just to clarify that.
Yes.
No. So the question is, maybe how have you navigated some of this? I made my joke and forgot your question. So, yeah.
So he just asked how because my husband is a professional hockey player
Yes.
in the NHL for 12 years. So it was, how did we navigate his success?
And how did you meet?
And how did I meet,
missed that
first
part,
of all? And how did I meet him? Well, I met him at a hockey game, of course. I actually did. I met him here in Los Angeles at a Luke Robitaille charity hockey game. I was 18. He was 20. He was fresh off the boat from Russia. And let me tell you, that flow coming out from the helmet, it was awesome. It was like the blonde. Thank you. Thanks, girl. That hockey flow is something. You could just Google hockey flow on YouTube, and it's amazing. So, he had like a really good version of a mullet. And so, it kind of came out the back of the helmet, and I really liked it. But anyway, we were I thought he was super cute. But we were introduced at this charity hockey game because Dave Coulier, who plays Joey on Full House and Fuller House, he's a big hockey fan. And he was playing in this charity game. So he actually had told me ahead of time, and the whole cast, we all had gone to this game to support Dave. But he said, I want to introduce you to these two Russian hockey players that are really good, because Val's brother is a well-known hockey player as well. And so I met Val at that game and he asked me for my name and number, and I wrote my name and number on a blank check. I didn't know at the time. Do you guys even use checks today? I forgot my audience. Anyway, we went on our first date the next day, and the rest is history.
Did you know right away?
I did not. He said he did.
When I met my wife, I went back and told my college roommate that I met my wife the very first time.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I came home after my first trip because he lived in another city, so we actually got to know each other by phone for about 6 months before we ever met again. It was great. Yeah. But after I met him on that trip 6 months later, I came home and I'm like, no, he's great. I mean, it's not like I'm going to marry the guy. I was 18. It wasn't on my radar. That hockey flow got me.
All right, got time. We're going to take one more right there. Favorite outfit on Full House? Go.
Or Fuller.
Or Fuller House, yeah.
Oh, I love when I get to wear costumes because that's just another department. If you're into fashion, costume design in the film industry, by far one of my favorite departments. And we had not only an amazing costumes designer, but an amazing seamstress that would build the majority of our costumes. So, for instance, there was a fairy godmother episode where we were all dressed up as fairy godmothers. Those were all custom made for us. We had another one this season, like the Tanner / Fullers threw together a Renaissance party for young Max in 30 minutes, which was so over the top, but we were in all Renaissance costumes. Again, custom made from our seamstress. And it's costumes like that. We had a Halloween show as well, and I love dressing up. I came down as that fairy. If you watched the episode of Fuller House, okay, I came down as the fairy, and I could not have been more excited. And I was, as Stephanie and Kimmy were looking, saying, "Who gets this excited of an adult wearing a costume like this?" And I was giddy, and that was because that was really me. I'm that person. I got to be Tinkerbell on The View on the Halloween episode, and they put me up in the rafters on a harness, and I flew down as Tinkerbell. Like anything acrobatic and anything in a costume, I'm in.
Start working on your scripts now. All right, P.O. Box. No, just kidding. Candace, thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Can we thank her? And I just want to say, thank you so much for all of you for coming here and just supporting this night, for being our audience. Those of you, we know you're still out there in the overflow rooms. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much.
And, please, when this comes out, check it out, share it. You can find the podcast under The Lucas Miles Show or on faithwire.com. And thanks for putting this together.